Hello everyone, welcome to Tactica, Imperialis and to today's video. Today is going to be a my thoughts on video, which as always given my upload schedule at the moment is a bit late. And that's going to be my thoughts on the Warhammer Preview Online, The Dead and the Divine. I watched this live on Saturday the 23rd of January when it came out, and I wanted to talk about it and then I got busy and I didn't get a chance. So now I'm going to talk about it. I want to talk about all the things that were revealed here because there was a lot going on. Some things we expected, some things we didn't, and a few points of order that bear discussion. So we've got lots to dive into, and I hope you enjoy it. So, I know you've probably seen all of this 6-7 times when you watched it yourself or watched all the other YouTubers react, but let's have a chat about it regardless. So they started us off with, well, I don't know why this is up here at the top, with Warhammer 40,000 and the Adepta Sororitas, notably the Paragon Warsuit. This version in this trailer teaser image is much better than this one, mainly because it has a helmet, but they did reveal this Paragon Warsuit, a new vehicle unit, I suppose, for the Sisters of Battle in preparation for their new codex, which will be coming out, well, we're not sure exactly, but I think it will be out probably in April time, just to give the Drakari a little room to breathe. So it will either be out in March or it will be out in April. I am not entirely sure which. Either way, this thing is a sort of smaller and more practical version of the Grey Knight's Nemesis Dread Knight, the much maligned and much memed baby carrier, as most people call it. And I really do like the Paragon when you compare it to the Dread Knight. I'm not the biggest hater of the Dread Knight. It's not my favourite model in the world, but it's not my favourite, or my least favourite either. But this is better, because it makes more sense because the pilot is ensconced properly in it, especially when you put a hat on it. And the controls make sense as well, being controlled through these like joysticks as opposed to psychic. Obviously, psychic power works for the Grey Knights, but I think the practicalities of this thing are much improved over the Nemesis Dread Knight. And I think the scaling of it kind of works a lot better too, because the Grey Knight versus the Dread Knight was such a huge difference. This again looks a bit more practical, like an actual war suit. And I do like it for that. I like this sword design. This one's got a multi-melter, I think. And the one in the trailers, I think you can see there's got bolter variants as well. And I really like these cathedral-style missiles as one of the secondary weapon options. So it's a really nice model, and they have said that there will be more reveals for the Sororitas in 2021. We know about the Palatine in the Piety and Pain box set. We've now seen the Paragon. Who knows what else they will do now that they've taken the shackles off of just recreating the Sisters range that used to exist. They've fully now redeveloped new things for them, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I expect they might get a flyer. They might get another heavy squad. I don't know what they'll get. We'll have to find out in the coming weeks and months. Warhammer 40,000 also got Kill Team. I still can't get over the fact that they're still using the old logo on Kill Team. I'm just looking at this now, like, why are they still using the old logo on Kill Team? I get that you don't want, you want to use the new logo everywhere, but why have they not changed over? Why? I know it's the old logo for Kill Team, but why not change this? It had taken like 5 minutes. Did they not just have all the old Photoshop layers missing? Strange. Strange, but here we are. Kill Team is getting a box set called Pariah Nexus, which will see the introduction of 4 new kits. A Gravis Captain with heavy bolt rifle, sort of like a captain in the style of the Heavy Intercessors, and the Heavy Intercessors themselves. They're getting a squad of 5 in this box, and this will be the first time that the Heavy Intercessors actually get released, is in this box. They look well. We've seen them a long time ago now. It was a few months ago we saw the Heavy Intercessors. They look well. No complaints here. And I think 5 is probably about the right size for a kill team of them, given that if it was old Marines in the Firstborn, you'd probably get a tactical squad, and maybe in Primaris you'd get a 10-man squad of Intercessors. So a 5-man squad of heavy Intercessors does make sense. The Necrons are receiving a Chronomancer, which I am told is a slight change on the current Chronomancer. Even though there is a new Chronomancer model, this is slightly different again. I believe it's in the staff top and maybe a couple of other bits as well. And the new Flayed ones. The Flayed ones look really nice. Well, as nice as Flayed ones can look, I suppose. The biggest downside is you only get 5 of them, which I know these box sets are never built around gameplay balance, but 5 3-wound damage to Primaris Marines versus 5 generally quite fragile Necron Flayed ones seems very, very unfair. I think it would have been nice to bulk this out to 10 for the Flayed ones, though obviously I don't know how powerful Heavy Intercessors are versus Flayed ones in Kill Team, never mind in the main codex. I do think it's a surprise that they're evenly balanced on numbers, given these guys are 3-wound powerhouse heavy infantry, and these guys just aren't. Like, if these guys were Lich Guard or Immortals, I might buy it. But Flayed ones, I don't buy it for balance. You get a double-sided game board, objective cards, nice little rulebook, and these lovely little pieces of Necron terrain, which, if you're a game, someone wants to get custom boards, are probably not that much use to you because of the wrong size, unless you're making a full Tomb Complex of chaining it all together. But they will certainly help for scratch builders and artists looking to make Necron architecture for their art pieces or game boards. Adeptus Titanicus is receiving a upgrade all of its own, that being the War Master Titan. Sort of a larger variant of the Warlord that sits between it and the Imperator, which of course is the legendary Super Mega Death Titan of all largest things ever. And the War Master comes, in this case, with its missile launchers and plasma destructors. These things are big, they are powerful, they are terrifying. And if you look at it to scale, this is the scale of the Titans. So the War Master sits pretty much half a head and shoulders above the Warlord in terms of its sort of shoulder pads, and it sits nearly a full head and shoulders above the Reaver Titan. This thing is monstrously huge, and it is definitely imposing. I can imagine that if you are into Titanicus, some of you are thinking, I want my hands on this right away, and some of you are thinking, oh goodness, how on earth am I going to kill that with my slightly smaller version of the armies with Warhounds and Knights, and maybe a Reaver at the top end. I know that Titanicus has a really diverse meta now, and they were talking about how you can have big armies with Warlords and Warbringers, and small armies with Questoris and Warhounds, and sort of pit them against each other for very different styles of games. So it'll be interesting to see how the War Master fits into that. Still cool either way. And they also revealed Loyalist Legios, or Legios, depending on how you prefer to pronounce it, which is a equivalent, I'm told, to the 30k red books. So the black books are, for those who don't speak their 30k, the black books are the lore books. They're the big ones like Inferno, Massacre, and things like that. That come with a huge amount of lore and some new rules, like the new rules for the new factions in that book. So book 7, Inferno, for example, came with the Space Wolves Legion rules, the Thousand Suns Legion rules, the Side Titans, the Custodes, and the Sisters of Silence. It was not comprehensive. Well, it was for those legions and those armies, it was comprehensive, but it was more as much focused on the background as anything else. This thing appears to be much more about rules with huge amounts of different options, 12 households and 16 legions. That's a lot of different army factions. So rather than pushing it around a storyline or an event, and then putting the army lists around that, this appears to be much more straight down the middle, like the red books, which are like the Crusade army lists for the Horus Heresy game, which is good. And they confirm that the traitors will be getting one later in the year. So it is all good, and you'll get that nice balance for Titanicus players. If you play it, I'm sure you're looking forward to this. I personally don't, because I've got enough things to do in the main games as it is. And speaking of the main games, oh, Age of Sigmar, let's talk. So, Teclis and the Lumineth are getting a second wave. Now, I know what you're thinking. Tactica, didn't the Lumineth only come out in September last year? Yes, they did, dear viewer. And no, they weren't supposed to come out that late. They were supposed to be out back in April or something like that, but pandemic. So they were delayed. But within a year of their initial release run, however you cut the cake, they are getting a second wave of models, which is weird. It's really weird, but also entirely predictable, because the Alarith are only one part of the Elementary, so we knew they were going to get more eventually. I just didn't think they'd get it this fast. And what they are getting is the Huracan, the second of the Elemental Temples, led by their avatar, the equivalent to a Valinor, which is Sevireth, the Lord of the Seventh Wind. A goat, fox, antelope, archer on the wind, super mega death creature, and oh my goodness, this thing is amazing. This thing is absolutely amazing. Wow. Inject it into my veins. I love this model. I think this model is absolutely stunning, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it when it comes out, when Broken Realms Teclis comes out, whenever that so happens to be. Won't be long, I don't think. But certainly I cannot wait to get my hands on Sevireth. And just like Avalinor, the Stoneheart King, has the Alarith Spirit of the Mountain on it, we know that this will make a unnamed variant, which I'm guessing will be called the Huracan Spirit of the Wind, or Spirit of the Peak, or something like that, because I think these guys will be the Temple of the Peak, rather than the River or the Zenith. But Sevireth is not coming alone. As amazing as this model is, it does not come alone. We saw a couple of days earlier, thanks to some leaks, well done Potato Cam and leaks, we saw the Huracan Archers, which are like kangaroo cavalry, kangaroo archer cavalry no less, and the Venari Lord Regent riding on their very strange looking creature that I cannot put a name on off the top of my head. And in this trailer, they actually showed silhouettes for a lot more than that. And I just want to flick through it without playing it, because there are a load of cool silhouettes that I want to draw attention to. So this one here is the Venari Lord Regent. We've seen this one before, which gives the Lumineth an actual cavalry hero, an unnamed hero that is a beatstick, which they really needed, to be honest, because the only unnamed heroes they had were the Cathalar and the Alarith Stone Mage. So an actual beatstick hero for the Venari makes total sense, and I'm glad that they are getting one. This Lord Regent will hopefully fill a gap and also allow you to take an army of punchy things without having to rely on a Cathalar, which does not work as a punchy thing. Then we got to see this thing, which I'm not sure what it is. I'm guessing it's a wizard character, or looking at the length of this staff and the way it branches, might be an alternate viewpoint of this character, which I think is going to be a battle standard bearer, or an equivalent to the battle standard bearers from Warhammer Fantasy. The only armies that have those are the Knight Vexillor for the Stormcast. I think there certainly used to be a big War banner for the Oryx, but that might be in greenskins now. I can't think of many dedicated battle standard bearers in AOS, but I'm certainly down to see them back. I love battle standard bearers, and this certainly looks like one. I'm guessing there will be a Venari hero, judging by sort of the headdress and this plumature. Kind of reminds me of the Venari Orlan Wardens more than anything else, with this nice wide plume and a simple sword. I think this will be a Venari BSB to allow you to create a pure Venari army where you've got archer support, cavalry, spearmen as you had before, but also magical support, a combat hero, and a support hero in the form of a battle standard bearer, which I really like. They then showed us this thing, which I think it also ties into the Venari, looking at the helm. And I think this is going to be a ballista war machine. You can see here you've got the bowstring of the Auralan Sentinels, but you've got two of them connected by what looks like a crossbeam. So I think this is going to be a ballista, maybe the new incarnation of the repeater bolt thrower. And again, if you're wanting to run a pure Venari army, this is a good support unit to have in that build. This is a hero model that is copying the Eidolon of Matlin in some way, because this is the elf, and this is something in between the elf and the base. I'm not sure what it is yet. I'm not sure if this is the Cloud Lumineth, and so will be the Huracan hero, like the equivalent to the Alarith Stone Mage. I'm not sure yet, or what this is, but that's my best guess at the moment. Skip on. And then these guys. I think of all the units we saw, this is probably the one that we know the most about, because there is a model for these in Diachasm. The Lumineth Diachasm Warband has a sword-wielding, back banner carrying Lumineth in there, who is one of the warriors supporting the mage in the Warband. And I think these guys are sort of the reincarnation of the Swordmasters of Hoeth. They will be Venari heavy infantry, so that, again, your Venari core army is not just spearmen, archers, and cavalry as your only punch unit. This guys will give you some really punchy heavy infantry, I think, in a Venari build. Though if they are Huracan, I'm not going to be opposed to that. Maybe they'll have the wind magic and be the equivalent to the Alarith Stone Guard. Can't confirm that one either way, though. And this was the final one before we got into Severeth. Go away, email notifications, thank you. And it appears to be, I'm guessing this will either be a Venari infantry hero, or it will be a Huracan basic leader, kind of equivalent to the Alarith Stone Mage, whilst Cloud Guy, or whatever we saw earlier that's copying the Eidolon, is going to be a named character. We don't know at this time who this is, but it is a cool looking pose, and it's kind of got that same sort of filigree as the Swordmaster type models with this sort of filigree on their helms. They've kind of got the same sort of thing going on with their helm slash back banner type thing. Either way, loads of amazing models coming for the Lumineth, and I cannot wait to get my hands on them. I am surprised that they're not their own army, and that they're going straight into Realm Lords, because it essentially doubles the size of the Realm Lords army. But here we are. We are where we are. And they will all be coming as part of Broken Realms tech list, which weirdly was revealed the day before the show. Like, there was an amazing trailer for Broken Realms tech list that went up with tech list ruminating, and it talked about all the plot stuff, and it was amazing. But they put it out on the Friday, and the show was on the Saturday. Like, I know they had limited time for the show to do all these features, but why didn't they just play that trailer and save the announcement of Broken Realms tech list for this show? Because they crammed all the Lumineth into one segment. They could have had two segments where they talked through the Lumineth models in one section and the new books in the other, with Broken Realms tech list here and what's just below, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, this book is set to be Teclis versus Nagash, as the Lumineth go to put an end to the Soul Wars and, I assume, pave the way for AOS 3, which I'm still believing will be the big war, thanks to all the Broken Realms fiction. And I don't agree with this. I don't think Teclis deserves to be the one to beat down Nagash and end the Soul Wars. Like, I get it. They need someone who isn't Sigmar to do it, because if Sigmar could do it, why hasn't he done it for the entirety of the last 3 years, or what will be 4 years, 3 years between AOS 2 and AOS 3? Why hasn't Sigmar done it? It can't be him. Why hasn't Archaon done it? Well, he didn't know he needed to. But then there was the attack on the Varanspire, where he thought, okay, now I know I need to go and deal with Nagash again. He hasn't done that. I personally feel like Teclis is too arrogant, too hubristic, and too wrong to be allowed to execute a plan to beat down Nagash and end the Soul Wars. this plan needs to bite Teclis in the rear. Whether that's by alienating him from Sigmar entirely and causing him to burn down free cities, kind of not quite doing what Morathi did, where she conquered a free city, but sort of burning the bridges between the elves and the humans even further. Since Morathi's taken the Idoneth and the daughters away, now Teclis does something so heinous in the eyes of Sigmar that it alienates the Lumineth from everyone permanently. I just feel like this plan needed Tyrion to be executed correctly, and I'm hoping Tyrion has a big role to play in Teclis delivering the beatdown, because, well, Nagash is amazing, and the Mortarks are also amazing. As warriors and wizards, Teclis is not enough to beat them down. Eltharion wants his revenge on Arkan the Black. Give it to him, fine. But I feel like this book needs Tyrion. And that's why I thought when we saw all the new Lumineth that it would go along with Tyrion, because they're more militaristic. You've got sword warriors, war machines, cavalry, horse archers, well, kangaroo archers, and things like that. That seems more along the lines of Tyrion. So I would have hoped that this would have been a way to get more Lumineth units out and put Tyrion out to the fore, even if you don't do Tyrion's model. But no, Teclis is going to get the honours, isn't he? And as the guy that created the end times, kinda, and the guy who gets it wrong every time because of his hubristic arrogance, this really needs to bite Teclis and the Lumineth in a bad way. Otherwise, it's going to feel like, hey, look at the new thing beating up the old thing that you all liked. And that's, well, any of you who are professional wrestling fans like me know that, hey, look at the shiny new thing beating up the old thing doesn't always go over well, but then neither does look at the old thing beating up the shiny, prosperous new thing. So, difficult one. The book also comes with with rules for Lumineth, as mentioned, Ossiarch Bone Reapers, Flesh Eater Court, Maggotkin of Nurgle, and the Cities of Sigmar. I assume this will be another allegiance ability or two for the cities and a battalion. The Maggotkin, I don't know what they'll get, because they had a bunch of stuff in Wrath of the Everchosen, and they are now, I think, the oldest battle tome in the game. I think. Certainly they're among the top 3 for oldest battle tome in the game, and certain people will be saying, well, why aren't they getting the battle tome? But we are where we are, I suppose, on that one. I know it's not ideal. Flesh Eater's relatively new, but probably could do with a couple of new battalions. And Ossiarch, a couple of extra bits of flavour, since their biggest army option, the Petrifex Elite, got nerfed into the ground. It never hurts. And then they showed a new battle tome for the Daughters of Cain, which annoyed some people because, hello, Maggotkin are 2 months older, why aren't they getting the book? My best rationale is that the Maggotkin book is still legal. Technically, with Broken Realms Morathi, the Daughters of Cain book is no longer valid in its sole current state, because Morathi, the High Oracle of Cain, no longer exists. She has been wiped away and replaced with the Morathi Cain Shadow Queen combination, and so that War Scroll needs to be retired and replaced with Morathi Cains to bring the book into line. That's my working theory as to why this book is getting a rewrite, even though Daughters are still one of the most powerful armies in the meta. They're still up there, they're still taking names, and they have been pretty much since they came out in 2018. But here they are getting a new battle tome, and they are going to get some new endless spells, which I'll show you in a moment. What I really like, though, is the change of the cover star. So, in the old book, the front image of the Daughters of Cain battle tome was a witch elf. They were front and centre because at the time, it was all about the witch elves. The Daughters of Cain were the witch elves, the Sisters of Slaughter, Morathi, and that's kind of it. The Melisai and the Kinnerite, they were there, absolutely, but they were generally kept in the background, lore-wise, anyway. They were hidden, they were the secret agents of Morathi, and most of the realms didn't know about them. Now, Morathi Cain has made her power play, and the Melisai, in particular, are front and centre. The Scathborn, as the Melisai and Kinnerite are known, are now front and centre. And so it makes sense to put a Melisai, in this case a Bloodstalker, front and centre as sort of the cover star, because now they are the symbol of the Daughters of Cain, and the Witch Elves have faded slightly into the background with the rise of Morathi Cain. It's just a neat little touch. The endless spells themselves are the Bloodrack Viper, the Blade Wind, and the Heart of Fury, and they look absolutely lovely. I can imagine there are many people eyeing these things up for conversions. I know I've got my eye on the Heart of Fury for my Altar of Cain conversion, if it does happen to suck in-game. The Blade Wind, I'm sure so many people will get something cool out of the Blade Wind if you just change the blood to fire or to ethereal energy or something. You could do something really cool with that. And the Bloodrat Viper, well, it's a giant freaking snake. What more do you want? They do look amazing, and I'm sure that many non-Daughters players will look at getting one or more of these for conversions if they are so inclined. It's really cool. And they will be coming out alongside the Hedonites of Slaanesh with Sigval the Magnificent and everything else, which I assume is going to be in February. I don't think it will be long until we get Slaanesh. And so this Daughters book is not going to be far off, and then Broken Realms tech list will probably follow that. So they'll resolve the Morathi Slaanesh storyline with Broken Realms and the 2 new books, park that, and then go into the tech list storyline with all the new Lumineth being the next wave of AOS releases. At least that's my working theory. Underworld's Diachasm was next, with the Crimson Court, a Soul Blight warband. Now, officially, the Soul Blight haven't been revealed yet. There was a leak of a Vampire Lord around the same time as the Lumineth, which obviously was annoying, but we all sort of thought after we saw that leak that we would get the Soul Blight Battletome reveal on this show, and we didn't. Instead, all we got was their precursor, the Underworld's warband, and they look amazing. Like, look at these models. This one's the leader character, and he just screams Von Karstein. This model is fantastic, with that really heavily segmented armor, like a skull motif on the breastplate. And, oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. This model was teased and shown off a few days before the show with the twin dueling rapiers. Again, clearly a vampiric aesthetic, which is really cool. And that segmented armor is back without leaning too hard into any piratical aesthetics. We've got an Enforcer model here who looks amazing with this giant whack-off mace that I'm sure so many people are going to steal for conversions. Heavy armor, but no abs armor because he's that skilled as a vampiric warrior. And finally, this vampire with another really cool looking mace, but a lot smaller, and wings, because in the lore, if the Soul Blight go a while without feeding and they are starved of it, then they mutate, and that's where the Varkheists come from, I've been led to believe. And so this is clearly a starving vampire character who has begun to mutate due to not being able to feed. And speaking of feeding, they have a hunger mechanic, which means that if you play very defensively, they'll go hungry and you might lose control of them. So you need to be going on the attack and destroying units in order to win the game. But at the same time, is that always going to be advantageous to you? Difficult mechanic to balance because they're going to be really powerful, but also really tricky to control. And I think my favourite part of it is I think this might feed in to their battle tome when we get it, which is unconfirmed, by official sources at least, to be the Soul Blight Gravelords. I think it would be really cool if they have a hunger mechanic as well. For example, if they don't destroy a enemy unit within the first 3 rounds of combat, then they become berserk. They have to charge the nearest enemy unit, but they also gain, say, an additional attack to compensate for the lack of control and their increased aggression. And maybe if they are able to destroy a unit, then they become well fed or start to feast, and so they are slower on the next round, but to compensate, they get much more powerful hit penalties, say a +1 to hit or a +1 to wound, because they are much sharper and at their sort of peak of power because they've just fed. It could be an interesting mechanic for a Gravelords player to balance that makes them very different to the Flesh Eater Court while still playing off similar sort of thematics and motifs. And finally, Warhammer Quest is back. After Blackstone Fortress ended with Escalation, we have Cursed City, which is the next expansion. It's going back to AOS. And with a Jarl of Skyrim lookalike in the trailer, we got the first look at the new models. Only two, one good, one evil. And they are this vampire hunter armed with rifle, underslung stake launcher, hammer, greatsword, and short sword. That is a lot of weapons, and it is a very cool model, and everybody on the internet lost their minds as soon as they saw it. Inquisition players are going to love this for 40k. Cities of Sigmar players are going to love it. Obviously, Warhammer Quest players are going to be very happy with a model like this. It is fantastic. And I really do like this model. It's not my favourite model on the show because I'm biased towards Severeth, but it is an amazing model nonetheless. In fact, all the models shown off on the show were really, really impressive. Just different degrees of amazing. And Gorslav the Gravekeeper, the sort of evil, one of the evil heroes, yeah, it's straight out of a horror game, isn't it? A giant shovel come axe, this awful looking hook thing, no way to see because of just aesthetic reasons. It looks terrifying, horrifying, gross, and yet also utterly amazing, and definitely worth kicking the backside of in your games of Warhammer Quest. Now, we don't know when the Cursed City will be out, but there is a website that's going up, so it's actually already up down here, ageofsigmar.com/cursed city, the bottom left corner of my screen says. And so you'll be able to check it out, maybe do a bit more background reading, watch the trailer for yourself, and get all immersed. But with that, we arrive at the end of the show and the end of today's video. And I have to say, this was an amazing show from a modelling perspective. The Cursed City models are fabulous. The Soul Blight models for Underworld are absolutely stunning. Like, I remember watching Kirioth's video and he was like, they are basically flawless. And they are. They're genuinely amazing, and I don't know what I'd change about them. Answer, probably nothing. They're amazing, and whilst I don't think I'll buy into playing Soul Blight, I understand the temptation. I certainly do. With the new Endless Spells, they look great. The new Lumineth with all these things we've shown. Severeth, I think, is my model of the show, but I'm biased. And then we've got all the cool things we talked about in this trailer, particularly the Swordmaster-like models. I think one of my favourites from that set. The Titan looks very much like a Titan, looks really intimidating and powerful. And the Kill Team, we've already seen these guys with the slightly new models for the Chronomancer and Captain. And then the Paragon Warsuit, which this version not so good, this version really good. I have to say, I'm really impressed with everything on this show, and I can't wait to see what is going to be coming and when. We know that Slaanesh won't be long, and that the Daughters of Cain won't be far behind. The Drukhari will be out soon with Piety and Pain, and their box and Lilith Hesperax, so we've got plenty to look forward to there. So lots to look forward to, and if there are any more previews, I will certainly talk about them at some point in the near future, whenever they happen. I will try and upload them more on time. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. This has been Tactica Imperialis. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Always interested to see what you have to say. And these have been my thoughts on the Dead and the Divine Warhammer Online preview. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all again. Bye for now.